Welcome to the Blueprints Podcast. I'm Isabelle Broidigam, Director of Marketing at Custom Built Designer Modeling, here with Michael Flory, founder, CEO, and my dad. And today we're going to dive into 90-day goals, how we set them here at Custom Built, and then how we work to be accountable and really accomplish those, again, within a 90-day period. So welcome. Excited to have you here.
Yeah. I came across an Instagram reel from Dan Sullivan. I loved what Dan said. He likes to collaborate and work with businesses that set goals and things that scare them, that put them into courage, courage mode. And that's what I think about 90-day targets. And I think 90-day targets are more dangerous than 1-year goals. And what I mean by that is 90 days is a time frame that we can kind of conceptualize. It's 3 months, 90 days, and it feels a little bit more real than when it's like January 1st, 2025, and you got
52 weeks away,
365 days. You got all kinds of time to get your list of 100 goals done. And so, like what we could talk about today is really stuff that we've learned, not just from EOS, but definitely we implemented the system through EOS and really have made it a habit of once a quarter to get out of the office, set new goals, and we can kind of talk about what some of the goals that we set are, and then how we check in and we stay up to date on those.
Yeah. So per department, and this is an EOS framework, we'll get away every quarter and we'll have our quarterly meetings, right? So leadership team, marketing team, sales team, and we set our 90-day targets that we take. And I think one important piece to those 90-day targets is to make those goals SMART, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Obviously, in the 90 days, it's already time-bound. But really breaking those goals down to say, hey, here's how I accomplish this goal. And in EOS, too, they call it milestones, right? Like you have you have your quarterly rock, and then you have all your little milestones that make up the complete rock and the complete goal.
Right.
So tactically, we get away 90 days and we do that, right? And we come up with anywhere from 3 to 5 rocks that each person's taking, typically.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've done this for years now, and I mean, I've done it for a couple of years now, but how do you typically, like, let's start high level. How do you typically get to those rocks in a quarterly meeting?
Well, the quarterly meetings are built off of an annual goal. So just like I said up front, yearly goals are important because they give us the framework for, what we're shooting for. And I think one of the things about setting targets or setting goals is that they're predictive. A lot of times accounting is just like taking account of what has happened, counting it all up, what happened, versus predicting. And that's an art and a science. So if you've been in business, if you're brand new to business, you're just going to have to take a dart and throw it on a dartboard. You're going to have to set some goals. You're not going to really know. You're going to have to go with your gut on that. If you've got a few years in business, and you're setting your year goal, you're going to set your high level. You're going to set some sales goals. You're going to set some revenue goals. You're probably want to look at, setting a net profit goal, because you don't want to just do a bunch of sales and a bunch of revenue and not make any money. So you really want to look at the bottom line and how much does the company need to make, and what does the ownership need to get? What do we need to put away to invest and to build the business? All those things are going to be really important. So once you have your annual goals, then it's like quarterly, you got to set goals so that you're going to do it over the next 90 days. And businesses like ours, depending on the quarter, could typically see higher revenue, meaning that you're doing more install at certain times. Mm-hmm. And the sales and revenue may not match up, meaning you might have quarters where you sell a lot but not install a lot because you're ramping up. So those are things that you got to think about when you're setting those 90-day targets. But I think when you think about the 90-day targets, what is our revenue? Mm-hmm. What is our gross profit? What are we going to, and then, revenue, I think revenue and sales, I kind of separate those two. So in order to get to revenue, so I think of like sales first and then revenue, then gross profit. What are we going to do to cover our overhead? And then what's our bottom line? What's our net profit? We look at those numbers every quarter, and we set those numbers and we predict those numbers. So we call it, in EOS, we talk about the the 5 principles when you hit the ceiling.
The ceiling of complexity.
Ceiling of complexity. So when you're growing a business or when you're first starting, the ceiling of complexities, you have no idea. So just start, and you're probably, if you're self-funding the business, you're probably working more hours if the thing's not going well, or before you hire somebody, you're getting to a red line point. Your RPMs are getting up to 7,000-8,000 before you go hire somebody because you're just not sure if we're going to make it next month. So those are things that sometimes early entrepreneurs can make mistakes and can cost them a lot of time and energy. But yeah, so I think setting those goals are going to be really important. I was going to talk about the 5, hitting the ceiling, but one of those is predicting. So when we start getting stuck in business, we've got to make sure we're doing a good job of predicting, so every quarter when we get together, we look at it and we say, okay, last quarter we said we were going to do this and we did this, and like, we want to grade ourselves. Like if we said we were going to do 100 and we only did 50, you know what I'm saying? Like we didn't hit it. So we're not going to give ourselves a great grade. So as a leadership team, we want to be able to get better at predicting over time.
Yes. And I think that's really key and something that we have continued to get better at. But predicting is really key for those rocks that we'll create every quarter.
Right. Because out of the prediction, out of what we said we're going to do, if we're going to sell, $1 million,
how many leads do we have to bring in? How many impressions do we need to have on the website? Like how many networking events and so on and so forth.
And then
so
once we sell that business, now this tells production. So production is always trailing, And so in order to decide that we want to hire more people or buy more trucks or buy a building, all those kinds of things, the better we can get at predicting, the better we can get at having results and having a company that runs.
So every quarter we break it down, we create these rocks, we make them smart. And then let's talk about how we track that and how we make sure that at the end of the quarter, we're hitting those goals, or we clearly know we're not hitting those goals, right? Because at the end of the day, when we come to our quarterly, that's not the first time you want to hear that a rock is not going to be done, right?
Yeah, so the way that we do that is through a weekly scorecard. We have a weekly, we call L10 meeting for the leadership team. It's 90 minutes, starts on time, finishes on time. And L10 means that nobody likes meetings unless they're like some sort of actionable result out of them.
Yes.
And so it's like 10 out of 10. We want it to be a 10 out of 10. We want there to be like good discussion, IDS, identify, discuss, and solve all the issues, all the key issues in the business. Maybe not even all of them, but the key ones.
Yeah, the top ones.
But during that meeting, we also look at a scorecard and we say, okay, we predicted that we were going to do this for the quarter. So we divided that by 13. And so every week we should be getting this number of leads, this number of sales, this number of revenue, installs,
gross profit.
Yep. So we can look across and see, and we use a software called 90, and that software allows us to put everything in there. And so it all is contained in there and it makes it a little bit easier to manage. I mean, you still got to go put in and put the numbers in it. It's not like it go grabs it from QuickBooks and kind of a thing, but
no,
I wish it did. I try to get it too, but we're not quite there.
Maybe some AI software will help us out one day.
That, so.
And there's different softwares that you can use for a scorecard. That just happens to be the one that we use.
Yep.
So yeah, we start with the scorecard and then we also review our rocks every L10 meeting. So we'll go through and, for your 3 rocks for the quarter, for my 5, like we'll say on track or off track. And if it's off track, we likely will drop that down and discuss that as an issue because there's something, stopping that from getting done. So do we need to pivot? Do we need to look at and say, halfway through the quarter, like, hey, this was not the goal that we needed. Like we're going to adjust that. Or do we say there's this roadblock that we're running into and so it's off track unless we get through that roadblock.
Right.
You've obviously implemented EOS. You didn't start that way in business. What would be some words of wisdom you'd have for somebody who is just starting out? We talked about a lot of different tactical things somebody could do for quarterly goals, and sometimes it can feel complex when you start breaking it down and you're like, you set these yearly goals, quarterly goals, weekly meetings. Like, how can we simplify this for somebody who's starting in business and just is looking for a way to become more tactical in a 90-day setting?
Yeah, I mean, I would go buy the book Traction, and you can do all this stuff very simply, and then get a weekly cadence where you have a way to report on your numbers weekly. I think if you do those 2 things, that's really going to get you started. So read Traction, then build a scorecard, and then do your best to set less goals, less is better, and
Yeah.
get focused on the things that need to happen this quarter. Because when we get 20 goals in a quarter, we're not going to get those done. I mean, less is better. You know, the laser, when everybody's focused on doing one or two or three different things, you can really create some traction and momentum in a quarter. When you get 17 different things going on in a quarter and everybody's fragmented, it dissipates the power of the laser and you end up losing focus. But it's all about getting focused on the right things, which just takes time. So uh, I'll leave us with this. You know, I would say, you know, make sure that you, as an entrepreneur, you spend some time working on the business. If it's 2 hours, if it's 4 hours, or if it's 8 hours a quarter, I would recommend definitely like trying to do an 8 hour session once a year at least. Then on your quarterlies, you know, maybe you could do 4 hours. Depends on the size of your business. If you have a bigger leadership team, you're probably gonna have to have a little bit longer meeting. Um, but just do something, you know,
Mm.
and set a few goals. You can call them rocks, call them whatever you want, and then get the system going that you're meeting. Have a weekly cadence. In the traction book, they talk about what a good L10. They have sort of like what to make up of your L10 of that 90 minutes, how to have a real effective meeting. There's lots of good videos out there you can watch as well. So those would be, and I would just leave you with this, like progress, and this is Dan Sullivan,
Mm.
progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection.